Okay, we need to take a time out and do our honorable mentions because
Before we get to the good stuff.
because if you thought this was gushing, you don't know our number twos and our number ones. and and our number twos and our number ones are the exact flip of each other. So we better take a time out to do our honorable mentions now. Why don't you go first, Hun?
Okay, do you want me to do them one at a time or just give you all three?
Just give me all three.
The interesting thing about my three honorable mentions, which again is have at least one person who's been on at least one episode of One Calls the Heart. And what I didn't give myself any other guideline besides that, but what I find really fun and interesting is that I came up with three that are extremely different types of Christmas movies.
Yeah, me too. I just realized that.
They're very different. So I have one that is pretty dramatic. It is Home for Christmas Day, starring
Oh,
starring Catherine Bell and Victor Webster. And the One Calls the Heart connection is Anthony Konecki, who played Doug, Mountie Doug.
and he's a military guy in this one too.
There were, and this aired, did it air right after Doug was on When Calls the Heart? I believe, because we knew who he was when we
Oh yeah,
watched it.
we
Oh,
knew who he was.
this one originally aired as a Christmas in July movie,
That's right.
actually. And so I believe it was on probably a month or two following his appearance as Doug.
Yes.
So it was very fresh in our minds who he was from One Calls the Heart. So sad. Oh, now he's a military guy. Um,
He's good looking too.
this is hard to give much of a description without giving much away on this one.
I
But
know you don't want to do too
very
much.
briefly, what I will say is there are two different stories going on in this movie. Catherine Bell plays a single mother who was widowed a long time ago when her husband died in the military. I believe, when she was pregnant,
Yes.
and
When she was
so
pregnant.
her daughter, who is now teenager, 16,
18.
17, she is 18.
18.
Okay.
Yeah, she's about to graduate.
She never knew her father. Her mom has never dated again, but she has a really great relationship, friendship, crush with Victor Webster, who owns this little diner, adorable little diner. And
Where her daughter Betsy works.
Betsy works there at the diner for him. And so he's just been this great support system for her and is very friendly. But it is very obvious that he has deep feelings for her, the mom, and that she has. And it sounds as though they've voiced this discussion, and she has just continually told him that she's not ready for
Yeah.
any sort of relationship. And he's been like, "That's okay. I'm here if you change your mind." But
Incredibly patient man.
very incredibly patient man. The side story is that this young military man comes into the diner, meets Betsy, they fall in love. He's about to ship out. She's spending all her time with him. Mom does not approve of this. She doesn't seem to be super like one of those moms who doesn't want her daughter to date, but the military connection really terrifies her.
That's the
Um,
part. That's the
yeah,
part that drives her crazy.
she does not want her to end up in the same situation she was in, and she doesn't want her heart to be broken. And so she very much tries to keep them apart. And so there's a lot of the mother daughter storyline. There's a lot of the young love storyline. There's a lot of Victor's character trying to kind of help the mom kind of be realistic, but then also kind of their love story. And so there's many different aspects going on, and you definitely just have a lot more drama and deep emotion in this movie. And so that's definitely high on my list. On the flip side, another one I have on mine is one of what I would say is probably the funniest, one of the funniest,
I know which one you're gonna say.
one of the funniest movies that I think has been on Hallmark. And it is also, I don't know if you do know which one I'm going to say, because it is also a mystery. It is
I did.
the only
Yes, I did. I
it
did.
is the only Christmas mystery that officially exists on Hallmark, I believe. They're I almost counted Murder She Baked, Plum Pudding Mystery, because it's Christmas time in that
Yep.
mystery. But it's not truly a Christmas movie, so I did not count that one, even though Joanna Newmark's in it. But this one is called Santa Stakeout, and it is starring Paul Campbell and Tamara Mowry
Yes.
Housley. And I am admitting fully that the When Calls the Heart connection is super tiny. Super tiny. That's why it's an honorable mention. It is Dolores Drake, who played Hickham's mom
Yeah,
this
pretty
season
tiny.
in season 11. So tiny connection in terms of When Calls the Heart, but also I did rewatch Santa's Stakeout to prepare for this, and her role in Santa's Stakeout is also super teeny tiny. But it's there, and I have to mention it because y'all know how much I love the mysteries.
Oh yeah.
And for years, Hallmark specifically would say, we don't do Christmas mysteries. We don't do them. Period. Even though they have a mystery channel that does a bunch of Christmas movies. Now, I don't know what got them to change their mind,
But they did.
but they did. And it is not only a really great mystery, it isn't a murder mystery, it's more of a theft
Yeah.
mystery, art theft. But it's a mystery. You've got detectives, you've got, all of that, but you also have amazing acting. Paul Campbell is one of the funniest guys, probably the funniest guy on Hallmark, really. His comedic timing is off the charts and can also just do emotion really well. So it was a great balance. And you've also got Joe Pantoliano, who is a major actor in this movie, as their main suspect that they're basically staking out.
Yeah.
So they are partners. They are Paul and Tamara are partners.
They're new partners, aren't
New
they?
partners. She has
Yeah.
just moved to the area from a different police precinct across the country. They don't know each other very well. They have very different detective styles, but they also have very different just personalities.
And then they have to go undercover as a married couple.
They have to go undercover as a married couple, newlywed couple.
Oh, that's right,
and newlywed couple. In this house that was available for rent next door to their prime suspect in this art heist. And so it's so cute. It's so funny. There are so many lines that you are just cracking up about. There's a young officer who kind of comes and assists them from different times. He's always like physically falling down or getting stuck with things, or like asking them if they have hot chocolate to drink when they're like sitting there with hot chocolate. They're like, we don't have any. He's just like, he just feels so bad. It's so funny. And there's just so much comedic timing added to it that plays so well. And I love having both that really fun comedy aspect and also a mystery. I think the combination worked really well, and I think it was just wonderful to have a Christmas mystery.
Yeah.
Well, that's there.
And last one?
And then my last one, this one came so close to not having to be an honorable mention, because if you combine the number of episodes between the different people who have guest starred, if you combine their total number of guest star episodes from When Calls the Heart, it would probably be over 10. But no one individual actor was on for more than 10. So unfortunately, it had to go to the other category. Now, it is the one with the longest name of any Christmas movie, I think. Most letters used in a title, with the weirdest acronym that comes up. So many people talk
on us, girl.
by the acronym. Never Kiss a Man in a Christmas Sweater. Bizarre title, yes. Now this is Niall Mater, who y'all know is my favorite Hallmark person ever. And what is super awesome about this movie is that it also has Matthew McCall, who played Wade Barrett in season 3, which is probably my other very favorite Hallmark actor of all
Probably.
time. Yeah, okay, so these are my top 2. These are
There you
definitely
go.
my top 2 Hallmark people of all time. They've both been on When Calls the Heart.
And they're in
Niall
one movie.
Niall for 5 episodes and Matt for 4. And they're in the same movie. Now, just, you know, so all the cards are on the table here. They were also both in an Aurora Teagarden movie together.
We're not going there.
But they had to fight and like hit each other over the head with chairs and throw each other into pools and like try to save Aurora's life. So completely different context. So in this movie, they're best friends, which is so much cooler to watch. And Niall is the star of this movie with Ashley Williams, who we love. She's amazing.
Yep.
And has just a touch of a military aspect without either of them being in the military. So she is a teacher on base. She teaches kids whose parents are in the military and some might be overseas. And she helps with kind of a Christmas event for those children here. And so they are working together to volunteer for an event for the children throughout this movie. Their meet cute is pretty nice and funny. Their second meet cute is a little more dangerous, you could say. Basic concept of this movie, she meets him at the park when she's walking home with her daughter. She is a single divorced mom. And she meets him. He is at the park wearing a very interesting Christmas sweater. And he is watching, or not watching very closely, unfortunately, his nephew, who she thinks is his son at the time. And he falls off of the swing, I think, and they both run over to help him and kind of meet. She again thinks it's his son. They just have a quick interaction. Later in the movie, she actually goes to carry a Christmas tree off of a Christmas tree lot and takes him out with the Christmas tree. Completely knocks him off his feet. He breaks his arm bad to the point of needing surgery.
I forgot that part.
To the point of needing surgery. So she ends up spending time at the hospital. They couldn't reach his family at the hospital, so she's staying there until he comes out of surgery and until his family can be found, because she just feels so horrible and guilty. She's like, oh my gosh, I've mutilated Christmas sweater dad, and she's just feels horrible. So long story short, she figures out he's not the dad of the little boy, he is the uncle. But now his huge ski trip for the holidays has been ruined. He cannot ski, he cannot go home. He has to stay in town where he was staying with his brother and wife and his sister-in-law. And now he has no place to stay either, because he was scheduled to leave and his sister-in-law's family was coming into town to stay with them. And now there is no way that they have room. Ashley Williams' character has a guest house, so to speak, and she offers to let him stay there. And then he ends up volunteering for her program. And so there's all of this back and forth. What I love about this movie is that there is a lot of humor. There is a lot of realism. It's not focused on, like, they're trying to do this Christmas stuff for the kids, but it's not an overwhelming part of the story. It's got this great piece to the story, but there's lots of activities that the two of them just do together, talking about their personal life. He's had issues with his career, and he's not sure if he is still passionate about being an architect. She would like to paint again and had really put it aside because there was no time for it when she was a young mother and had a young child to take care of in her marriage. And so there's just a lot of personal support to each other. And lastly, if you watch this, if you've ever seen a movie where best friends are trying to help each other and the best friend's trying to help his buddy as a wingman to go get the girl, there's a really fun scene with that too. That is that is really
Her
exciting to
favorite.
watch. Well, especially when it's your two favorite actors doing the scene together. But I love that kind of scene in any TV
Yeah.
show or movie where they're like, I'm going to help you go get the girl. Um, but it's really great when it's your two favorite actors together.
Words. All right. Great
All right.
honorable
What are your
mentions.
three honorable mentions?
My three honorable mentions. Dickens of a Holiday, another Brooke Dorsey. The When Calls the Heart connection is Chad Willett. He plays Christopher Palaha's brother.
Yes. And
I
he was from season one.
and
So
he was
like
from
you're going deep.
he makes a brief performance in season 2.
Yes. But
Um
like primarily his big
yeah.
role was in season one. So that's kind of a deep cut.
Well, I'm familiar with Chad Willett from before When Calls the
Yes.
Heart, so I love him anyway.
Love it.
But Christopher Palaha's performance in this movie was amazing. I have never seen him act like this. And he plays a movie star who is asked to come back to his hometown to play Scrooge. And it's just really interesting watching him go from surface action actor to getting really down deep. My favorite scene is when Brooke and Chris are there together, and she is the director of the play, and she is trying to help him get the physicality of Scrooge, and she's taking his hands and she's kind of molding them and saying they're gnarled from age and from the cold. And then she kind of puts her hands on his face and says his face is very drawn, he's very grumpy and from being sad and alone for so many years. And just like, never knew that, a session with your director could be so hot.
Oh.
And then the brother relationship. I loved watching those two as brothers. They were amazing. They just were. And
It was really well cast to have
it
them
was so
as
well
brothers.
cast. It was so well executed. I just loved it.
I think like when I saw it, I you had seen it first and had told me how much you loved it.
Yeah,
Um, and so when I saw it, it was kind of one of those where you're just like, oh, well, yeah, of course Cammy loves this. It's about how to act. It's
yeah.
literally it's literally walking you through how to get in character and how to be in this kind of production and it literally shows what I love about Christopher's performance is that it literally shows him progressing through that ability of like I've got the lines down. I'm not really capturing it well. Okay, now I'm capturing it a lot better. And then when they show an actual performance, you're like, wow, look what he did. Look at how he changed it. Like, if you're not involved in productions at all and seeing some of that behind the scenes, like my daughter does very, a kids performing group. So I see some practice sessions versus the final product. If you're
Yeah.
not seeing that in any way in your life, it really brings that to life to where you can really see that like even if somebody's an amazing actor, that's why you have so many rehearsals. Like yes, you have to learn the lines, you have to like memorize what to do, but you have to try different things. You have to really envelop like okay, there are different ways you could do it. What is the best way for this specific situation? And so it's not just memorizing it and learning it. It's like getting into character is a process.
Well, and not only that, but the words themselves, there are so many different ways to say words, and there are so many different inflections. And when you're going through a script, you need to find the right inflections. You need to find the right places for pausing
Mm-hmm.
and for reflection on that. And one of my favorite parts is listening to Chris playing Scrooge, begging for everything to be okay of the ghost of Christmas future.
Yeah. It
And
changes so much throughout the movie how he plays that scene.
well, and this big thing is this is a rehearsal that is not a dress rehearsal, but it's getting very close to the end. He is not in costume. He's just there in street clothes. And his performance is so compelling. I was like this.
Yeah.
I was like this the entire time. And I just like, look at me.
Yeah. No. It's just a great portrayal of the process.
Next, okay, these last two are at complete ends of the scale.
Oh,
Could not
100%.
pick, I could
Yeah.
not pick a favorite between the two of them because they're so different. It's comparing an apple and an orange.
Yeah.
But
Totally.
the first one is Three Wise Men and a Baby,
How
and
could you not?
you can't.
You can't. And I only didn't because I knew you were doing it.
I
And I just,
know.
it would absolutely have been first on my list for an honorable mention.
Yeah.
If you didn't have it or if this was something I was doing solo, it absolutely would be on there. But I definitely just wanted to bring awareness to the other movies. So I knew since you were covering it, I
Yeah.
was gonna
Yeah.
have it.
It's got Andrew in it, Andrew Walker, who played in 2 episodes in season one. So small connection, but you can't help but love it. Before we
And
get
timing wise, a small connection, but his character left a lasting
very
impact.
lasting impression, you
So,
are absolutely
and there's
right.
been references to it since then.
Yeah, very,
Oh,
very true. Very true. Before we deep dive into it, I just want to say my other
yeah.
one, Once Upon a Christmas Miracle, the complete opposite
Oh,
of Three Wise Men and a Baby.
completely.
I am a sucker for true stories.
Hmm.
I love true stories. The When Calls the Heart connection is also small. Steve Basic, he was also only in season one of When Calls the Heart, but there was no way that this movie was not getting on there somewhere
Right.
because this movie is so beautiful. The whole time I'm watching this, what it's about is it's a nursing student has liver failure and she has to have a liver transplant and it has to be from a living donor. And this man, played by Brett Dalton, comes back from the military and he's working with her cousin, Steve Basic, and he hears about this need and he offers himself. They've never met, they have no connection, and he just says, I'll do it, taking a huge risk for
Yeah.
a total stranger. And the whole time I'm watching this movie, I am just shaking my head and saying, how could these two not fall in love? Because this actually happened. These two met because she needed a liver transplant and they got married in real life. It had the two of them make a cameo in the movie. And then at the
The
very
two real
end,
people. Yeah.
yeah. And then at the end, it showed their wedding photo. And
Mm.
I'm just shaking my head, going, how could these two not fall in love? They are forever bonded to each other. And Amy Teagarden and Brett Dalton just had this incredible chemistry. It was palpable. It was palpable. And just to watch him be so selfless and watch him trying to figure out how to be a civilian again and what he wanted to do. And he found a purpose in saving this girl's life. And then he goes beyond that and he organizes a fundraiser so that she can have the money to go back to school and finish her nursing degree.
Yeah.
This man is incredible and the love story is beautiful. It's so beautiful and you watch them healing together. You watch them falling in love while they're in the hospital together. It's oh,
I mean, the true story aspect, obviously, huge, right?
it made
There's been
my
a few
brother
other,
cry. My brother
yeah,
does not cry in movies, and it made him cry.
yeah. That definitely is a huge aspect. I also just want to say, like, in terms of casting, I think that Amy Teagarden is one of the most underrated actresses
I would agree with you.
on Hallmark.
Yes.
Her name doesn't come up at the top when listing like top actresses on this network.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and she hasn't done a ton of movies, as many as some of the other well-known actresses on the network, but I have not seen a performance from her that did not blow me away in some way.
Yeah,
There's
very
not a
true.
single time. There's maybe movies where I'm like, it's not my favorite, but I have never thought that wasn't the right role for her, or
Yeah,
she missed her mark anywhere. I've often been like, she was the highlight of a movie she was in
yeah,
most of the time that I've seen that. She is so, so good.
yeah,
And playing a real life character, I think, is that is probably one of her best roles, because you have to make a real life person come alive on the screen more than anybody else,
right.
and more than other characters you've played. Like, if you're playing something that is a suspension of disbelief type of character, you can have fun with it. But this is a real true person,
Yeah,
and did that just an amazing job of making you really think like, oh my gosh, she is dying. Like,
yeah.
you know,
Oh yeah. It pulls on the heartstrings, and she reminded me of me. And I think that's one of the reasons why I loved watching it so much. I got a hernia at Christmas one time, and I was trying to say, no, let's hold off going to the doctor until after Christmas so we can get through all of this. She did the same thing. And mine wasn't as life threatening, but it was a little scary. That hernia was about to get strangulated, and she had liver failure.
yeah,
So, and then she just absolutely loves Christmas, and she does everything to make the most of it and to do everything for her family to make the most of Christmas for them. And so those two things, I was just like, dang, I found my Christmas soul sister.
agreed.
And then Three Wise Men and a Baby. It's just hysterical. When you get Tyler Hines, Andrew Walker, Paul Campbell, and then the writing team of Paul Campbell and Kimberly Sested, there is no room for there to be a problem.
No, I think it's also just iconic, right? Because it's the first
Three men
real
and a
time.
baby.
Well, no, to that also. So it's sort
Oh,
of making a nod to a very famous, very well known movie that also starred three extremely talented actors who are very well
uh-huh.
known. But it's also the first time Hallmark really did that, where they took three very top tier actors,
Leading men.
leading men of the same gender, to star in a movie. And it's not, a love story. It's not, I mean, there was romance in it and there were love stories kind of as side things, but the main premise of the movie is not a love story. The main premise of the movie is these three brothers. We're going to make all three of them the lead. We're going to not really have a leading lady, so to speak. It was so out of the box. It was so unique. The fact they were also all the top actors on the
Yeah.
network, and that really just like the only other time that Hallmark has done that is with like the Wedding Veil movies.
Yeah.
Um, and so that was, I think, an amazing step to really show that Hallmark was looking outside the box. They are listening. Yes, there's something to the formula of a Christmas movie, and to do 42 a year, you're going to have some that are a bit repetitive, but they're also
Yeah.
taking risks. They're also doing new things. They're also stepping outside the box. in many different directions. And the comedy direction and the direction of having multiple leads and stories that aren't just romance, that is what's going to keep them relevant and keep them having the ratings and keep them, doing well with their Christmas movies, is by having new ideas.
The other thing that was so incredible about this movie is I saw all three men do things that I have never seen them do before. There was such a range of emotion. It was not just a screwball comedy.
Right.
There was the whole gamut. And then knowing that Tyler Hynes and Andrew Walker are cousins by marriage, and then watching the two of them play brothers was just hysterically fun. But I have never seen Andrew in one of his roles get angry. I have never seen him actually get angry. I've seen him hurt. I've seen him, frustrated, but come right out and get mad. Never seen it. I've never seen Paul Campbell play somebody who can't talk to people. He's always somebody outgoing or just a total nerd. I've never seen him play somebody who's shy. And then with Tyler, I've never seen him hold a baby before. And just watching these three men try to be bachelors taking care of a baby, something they have no experience with, but knowing that two of them are dads was hysterical in real life. But then watching them grow together, and as they come together to take care of this baby, their connection to each other heals, and they take care of things that they have not talked about, and they pull together in a way that they have not done in years. And yeah, it's just an all around great movie. And then throw in the Christmas aspect, and
yeah,
done deal.
Also, just amazing that they ran with the connection to Three Men and a Baby.
Yes.
And got, is it Margaret Collin, I believe is her name?
Yes,
who
she
was in the
first
original
one.
movie with Tom Selleck and Ted Danson and Steve Guttenberg. Like, obviously you're not going to get them, but like to get anybody that was in that movie who had a connection, and really there were subtle nods to that movie that just had that nostalgia factor.
Yes.
In addition to being so incredible with having these three men that we've seen in separate movies and now are seeing together. There were just so many layers to this movie being so amazing.
It also has Jill Teed as their aunt. I forgot about that part.
Right, that's right. She just was showing up everywhere this week.
Everywhere in these Christmas movies. Okay, time has come. Okay, you say your number one, and then I'll say my number one. Then we'll talk about it. But remember that my number one is her number two, and vice versa.
My number one is your number two.
Yes.
So,
we love these movies.
We love them. Okay, so this is kind of interesting because my number one is sort of three movies.
It's the same story.
It's the same thing, right? Okay. Shocker. If any of you have heard me talk about anything ever before. My number one is the Father Christmas series, starring Aaron Krakow and Niall Mater.
And Benjamin Wilkinson is in the
And Benjamin Wilkinson is in it. There's a few other people that have been in one of the three Father Christmas movies, but that list is actually a little bit longer, and I didn't fully write them all down. But there's several others that have popped up. Tom Travoy, who owned the Queen of Hearts, is in the third movie. There's bunches of just little nods in there. But if I had to pick one, the first one is my favorite because it sets up the whole story. And could easily be a standalone. They really all could be standalone stories. But if you're watching the second or third one, it makes sense to have seen the first one. It
That's
makes a
one of
lot
the
more
things
sense.
that's one of the things that I love is we got a trilogy. We got to watch the story unfold. We got to watch them fall in love. We got to watch them in the comfortable dating area and then see him propose. And then we got to watch the wedding. It
Mm-hmm.
just all three, we got all three incredible stages that could have been just a movie on their own, but they made it all part of the same story. And it was beautiful to watch it unfold. And I mean, can we even talk about the chemistry that these two have on screen together?
I mean, you and I talked about it a lot after Dan left the show, or right as Dan was leaving the show in season 4 when he was gone. They had brought in Paul Green and Niall Mater as new characters in Hope Valley so that,
You
I
see
mean, they
the
didn't, you
possibilities.
didn't see that, you didn't necessarily think about it until after Jack left. And then you were
Yeah.
kind of like, are they doing this on purpose? Did they bring these in so that we could see possibilities of her with other men?
Yeah.
And I still don't know for sure if that was the exact intention. They did
I
need
do.
more men in the town.
I do.
You do?
I guess they were brought in to consider them as possibilities.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, regardless, she didn't end up with either of them. It's
Yeah.
okay. I'm fine with it now. But in terms of Father Christmas, general brief overview of the first story is that she is a woman whose mother was an actress, died on stage when she was young. She never knew who her father was. As an adult, she finds some things of her mother's that was actually given to her by none other than Terrence Kelly.
Who played the angel character, also known as the peddler in the season 4 Christmas special.
Basically, she finds clues to who her dad might have been and goes on an adventure to try to find out more about him and goes to a little town in Vermont from Seattle.
Thank
And
heavens Niall does not end up being her brother or her cousin.
no, does not happen at all. No, thank goodness. But yeah, she shows up. She meets the family at a B&B and they help her kind of on this journey. And it's just lovely. Like I said, you could just watch the first movie and that would be all you would need to watch. But it's so great. There are very few movies on Hallmark that have sequels and that have two sequels, especially. And it's
That's
just,
almost unheard of.
yeah, it's wonderful. So I love being able to see the characters deepen and just see that over time what that would become. And I think they do a lovely job of like progressing it, still being realistic with, they don't make Aaron's character, who is extremely nervous and self-conscious in the first movie, they don't make that go away, but they do lessen it over time. So
Yes.
she still has a lot of worry. She's still an anxious person in the second movie, less so again in the third, but there's just a natural progression that shows like that she's growing and learning and becoming more confident, but not that her character is a different person. So it's very realistic. And I also want to say that after watching all three of these movies and them being in my very, very top, I went and read the books that are written by Robin Jones Gunn, and they are fabulous. There are 3 books in her book series, but they are different.
Mhm.
If you enjoy sort of a religious concept of reading, they're way high on my list of recommendations for, and I would say they're not even so Christmassy, that like the books are less tied to the season, even though they are. I
Okay.
feel like you could very easily read them any time of year and not really feel out of place, but it's fun to read them around the holidays. And they just the first book really encompasses all of her search, but it wasn't such a love story. In the book, the main lead character that is played by Niall is not introduced until the end of the book. So
Oh,
it's really more about personal journey and searching for her father and where she came from. And I kind of like that in the book form, that you're really more, it's more of an internal personal journey for her. And she's doing that more on her own. She has a lot of help and is making a lot of friends, but it's less on the romance. And then the second book is basically the love story.
okay.
But it's also encompasses a lot of things that happen in the third movie as well. And it's very different because the third movie is their wedding story, whereas the third book actually focuses on some different characters within that world.
Okay.
And they're more side characters. So it's very interesting to kind of have both perspectives. And so I highly recommend. It's definitely one of those where it's different enough, but it's inspired enough that you can really enjoy both separately. And there's not they're just so different that it is kind of apples and oranges, even though you can absolutely see where the story came from. And Robin's just a wonderful, wonderful author.
Mm-hmm.
And she made cameos in
We did.
at least two of the three movies.
Yeah. I have to say that I really love Niall's portrayal of Ian. He nailed that one. To this day, people, Sarah and I still talk to each other with a gif of Niall from the second movie. That's how we talk to each other.
It's the perfect yes.
It
It
is.
covers it covers any
Topic.
conversation we are ever having. It is the picture of him saying,
Believe
"Believe
me,
me,
I know.
I know." And I can use that with Cami literally anytime. Although
And
unfortunately I can't find it in my gifts anymore, and I have to just send her a screenshot sometimes, which luckily I have. But it's not as good as the animated version. But apparently it's not as popular anymore. They took it out of the gift store. I don't know.
his patience, his understanding, his supportive nature, and the way that he makes no bones about the fact that he's attracted to her. Just tie all of that up into a little package, and then there's possibilities of jealousy in the second movie, and
Oh.
he doesn't go there. He jokes, hey, should I be jealous? He never gets angry. He never lets it get to him. He asks her about it and he has her explain herself, which he lets her do, by the way. But
Mm-hmm.
it never becomes a problem between them. It's just a little hump that they have to get over, and it never becomes this huge issue. Okay, the time has come for your number two, my number one.
Now, one of your honorable mentions talks about a true story. This is true in a different way.
Indeed, and that's probably one of the reasons why I love it so much. Number one for me, number two for Sarah is my grown up Christmas list. Woo, baby.
Now, what's the When Calls the Heart connection here?
It's slight. It's very. I can't even say this. I can't even say that with a straight face.
I know, right? The number of combined episodes for these people.
It stars none other than Kayla Wallace, who plays Fiona, and Kevin McGarry, who plays Nathan. And may I also say that this was what I was talking about in our season finale recap. The only other Hallmark project that I know of that beats out the number of kisses. And that's because it's a 2-hour movie with commercials.
Right.
This one, it is my favorite because number one, it has the two of them. And as you all probably know, they are engaged to be married. And so they did this as a real couple. So I'm like, oh, you want me to kiss her again? Okay. Can I kiss him one more time? Can we just throw that in? Like, oh, well, no, we missed. Got to do it again.
Right. And it just, you can tell. I mean, yes, of course, great actors,
Yes.
you still can have great chemistry and make it seem as if you're in love with somebody, but you can pick up on the difference with this.
Yeah.
Because their comfort level with each other is so much. It's not so much just because they love each other. They know each other so well. They are so comfortable with each other that it seems more real because it's so hard to pretend like you're in love with somebody who you just met yesterday.
Right.
You know?
Yeah.
I mean, they just have that history and that deep connection already. So they can act that much more realistically.
This was also something that I've never seen from Kayla. I mean, she went from being here, not bad, not
No.
bad at all, did everything fine, to whoa, look at what she can do. The
Yeah.
subtleties, the subtleties of her performance, the emotion, and how she handles everything. And just, oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. I just watched this last night to prepare.
Research.
Research, had to do it. I refuse to confirm or deny that I rewound a few parts. If you're not familiar, this is the story of a journalist who lost her mother at Christmas time. She is coming back home for the first time for Christmas in many years. Her name is Taylor. His name is Luke. Go figure. He is a captain in the army and he is home for Christmas. They meet in the first 30 seconds of the movie, which never happens. Never. That never happens. These two meet in the first 30 seconds. He is
And
dressed
have a very meaningful conversation. Like not
exactly.
just casually bump into each other. Yeah.
He is dressed as Santa Claus. She is getting off the bus. He's handing out candy canes. It's Christmas Eve. She has come to visit her grandfather, and this is his hometown. And they have a very meaningful conversation. He stops her because, ooh, pretty girl. Let's be honest here. He can see beyond those white whiskers, right? So he stops her and talks to her and finds out that she's actually harboring a lot of pain and it's hard for her. But he loves Christmas, man after my own heart. He loves Christmas. And so he is trying to say, oh no, Christmas can be so much more meaningful. Basically, what happens is so they meet that first Christmas, and then an entire year goes by. This story takes place over 3 years, 4 Christmases, because it goes from Christmas to Christmas to Christmas. And so it happens over 4 Christmases in 3 years' time. And it is the story of how this journalist and this captain in the military meet, and then the next year he sees her in her grandfather's store when he's picking up some extra lights. And he says, yeah, I know tonight of all nights, it's Christmas Eve, but you wouldn't want to do something later, would you? And he ends up taking her back to the community center where he and his parents are setting up this dinner so that veterans and families of soldiers have a place to come for Christmas, which is so beautiful. And then they decide that they are going to date. They are going to have a long distance relationship, and they are going to stay connected, and they are going to see if this can work. And let's just say that it does work. It's so incredible to watch the love that these two have for each other, and it comes across on the screen. I don't want to say too much to give it away because it's such an integrated movie. But one thing that is so different about it is it does span a very long period of time. And that is so beautiful because it doesn't cause a problem with the storyline. I
Right?
never felt disconnected. I never
Mm-mm.
felt lost. I never said, "Wait, what? What's going on?" They
Mm-hmm.
they just smoothly went from one Christmas to another, and I thought that was part of the beauty of it. Every Christmas something different happened.
You're able to see that progression of the relationship all in one movie.
Yes.
Whereas it's kind of like Father Christmas, you're seeing that progression in three separate movies, which is still beautiful,
Uh-huh.
but it is kind of nice when you have it all at once and you don't need to, it's a more condensed storyline than three movies, but it works because that's the whole point of the story is seeing that. And so I think you're right when you say that timeline is what sets this one apart.
Yes.
And also to compare it to when we were talking just about military movies in general,
Mm-hmm.
this one did it the complete opposite, I felt, from Operation Christmas, where she was extremely nervous, extremely hesitant, didn't know if she could do it, called it off at one point, all of these things. Whereas I still felt like Kevin's character was kind of nervous about putting her in that position since
He
she hadn't,
was.
he was
He
about,
was.
he was very aware that she hadn't grown up in a military family. This isn't something she's used to, but they didn't dwell on it. And they took a leap of faith. And it's something that, whether there's something that dramatic happening in a new relationship or not, every time you make a choice to date somebody new, you are taking a leap of faith. You
Right.
are putting your heart in their hands. You are taking a risk. That's going to happen in life no matter what. And so I love that all these military movies do approach them differently, and you get to see different aspects of, like, oh, this is what this kind of personality would do in this situation, and this is what this kind of personality would do. And so you are seeing another military Christmas movie, but it's totally different.
Well, and the other beautiful thing is it was her idea. He was very attracted to her, and he said, it came close. He said, "Do you want to take a walk with me? I'll let it slide because
It was still enough that you're like, oh, that could have been for Hearties.
that could have been. I'll tell you what was for Hearties is him in that Santa suit with just the suspenders. All of his suspenders unbuttoned talk. But he took her on a walk to tell her that they have just spent a couple of hours together for the first time since meeting a year ago. And he doesn't want her to have to wait, but he can't not say anything because of how he's feeling about her. But he says, "Is this what we're going to do? Just meet every year to say goodbye?" And she's the one who is brave enough to say, this time, let's not say goodbye. And the look on his face is almost, really? You know, it's, she is the one who is saying, I want to do this with you. I want to take this plunge because they only have a week together before he ships out. You know, she stayed that extra week. she
Right.
she did not only stay for 3 days that second Christmas that she visited home, but she is the one who says, let's make this work. Let's give this a real chance. And I mean, I don't know how she's not becoming a puddle under the heat of those blue eyes, but this is so beautiful because this is where they share their first kiss. And he just leans forward. He's smiling the whole way. He leans forward. He kisses her. It's very short. It's not super invasive. It's him saying, I don't want to push you too hard, but this is how I feel. And he leans in and he gives her a very sweet, brief kiss, comes back, looks at her and smiles. She pulls him in and really kisses him. You could see his eyebrows go up. That that kind of reminds
He played with that scene. Yeah.
Oh, he totally played with that scene. It kind of reminds me of when in Haley Dean, when Matthew McCall's character Jonas got the first kiss. He all of a sudden his eyebrows go up because he's so surprised with it. But yes, Luke is so surprised that she's that all in, and then it's just a beautiful scene. It's snowing, it's a bridge, there's water going underneath, and they are just holding on to each other and showing each other that this is what they're going to do and they're going to take that leap of faith. And I just have to put this point in when they are talking over satellite or talking on the phone. Before they meet up the next time, he's calling her sweetie. And
Yes.
it's completely natural. Sweetie, you've got nothing to worry about. That's where they already are. And then the connection is breaking up and you barely catch him saying, Taylor, I love, and she says, I love you. You know, it's not the first time. It's he wanted to make sure he said it before they got cut off by the bad
Yeah.
connection. And so that is a beautiful progression of the relationship when it's all done separately.
Mm-hmm.
And it really shows that this day and age, with the kind of technology that we have, we can make these kinds of things work if we're willing to put in the time and the effort. And then I I gotta say that, I want, this was my wish for When Calls the Heart, but I got it in my grown up Christmas list. Kissed her on the forehead.
Yes, he
he's
did.
he's hugging her and cuddling her and holding her, and they're dancing, which is not a bad addition. But yeah, he kisses her on the forehead and he kisses her on the top of the head, and just all of these beautiful little things that they're doing to each other in their living room.
Mm-hmm.
They brought it all together, and they made this relationship between Luke and Taylor so real, so beautiful, so believable.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a joy to witness. It really was.
In terms of the military story, the other thing I was going to say is she didn't go into it blindly. She
No.
did ask a lot of questions. Even in that simple conversation, it was short and sweet, but she asked, like, how long are you going to be gone? what kind of communication is there? Are you coming home for visits? Like she had
When do you
gathered
leave?
information and really truly, so it's not like one of those situations where you're just blinded by the feelings and you're just like, sure, we'll try to make it work. And then reality sets in. She
Mm-hmm.
knew what she was signing up for, so to speak, even
Mm-hmm.
if you haven't experienced yet and it's not real. She had all the information she could possibly have. And I
Yes.
loved that so many movies just like gloss over that because they're like, well, this doesn't have to be on screen. We'll just imply that they had that talk already, because they're trying
Yeah,
to make the scenes of the movie beefier or whatever. I love that part because
I
you really
know.
are showing that she's being responsible. She's she's following her heart, but she's making sure that she knows what she's agreeing to and
Mm-hmm.
suggesting because then you know that her making that move and being very forward with making this decision, she has the information she needs to make it. So that really helps. And then the other aspect was I loved the conversations that she had with both of his parents at different times of the movie
Yes.
because his dad had been in the military before and his mom had been a military wife before and they were able to really truly have open and honest conversations about what to expect and how to handle the worry and the waiting and the uncertainty. And that was just really beautiful. And also talking about how, as hard as it is for us, it's it's harder for them to be away from home, especially at the holidays, but really anytime. And just kind of helping with that perspective, I think, because so many times in the Christmas movies, they're focusing on that person at home waiting and worrying. And
Mm-hmm.
I really liked that this also really truly delved into the perspective of the person who's away from home and missing home.
There is one part that I am going to come right out and say, yes, this probably would not happen. It is
Yep,
unrealistic
yep.
that she goes to the place where he is stationed because he's called back after he comes home. He is called back for an emergency, and she follows him. Yes, I know it is completely unrealistic for her to
Super
be able
improbable.
to go there. But I like that they did it because she saw she saw what he had. She went to his bunk because he was away and they weren't sure when he was going to get back. It was a scary situation. And so she is waiting there for him to come back. And she goes to his bunk and she says, "This is all he has." Because he is such an immense Christmas lover that she probably envisioned his bunk being covered in a bunch of garland and a tree somewhere by the bed. But he has so little of home and he has so little of Christmas, but he makes the most of it. And then I love that she's lying on his bunk waiting for him to come back. She is right there and she is going to see this through because she loves him and she wants to be there when he gets back and she wants to be the first to know when something happens. And when he sees her there, Taylor? it it was really well done. Just what are you? I don't care.
Right. I'll tell you, while it's very unrealistic, she could have gone there in real life. I would say the more unrealistic thing is that she was wearing a fancy Christmas outfit going to this army training center in the middle of nowhere.
Not
And
dressed in a
he
snowsuit.
not dressed in a snowsuit or at least some thick pants. And
I know what you're going to say
secondly,
next. I know what you're going to.
secondly, he has been on a mission outdoors in the snow overnight rescuing people. I would say, Taylor, oh my gosh, hug. And then I'd be like, let's get inside. let's warm up before I stand here and have a long conversation with you in the beautiful snow. I feel like he might be a little bit cold at this point.
But seeing her, I don't think he was feeling it anymore, either from the numbness or
He's
from
probably numb.
her.
Yeah.
No, I'll tell you what was really unrealistic is the outfit that she's wearing at the very end of the movie. I'm not going to say what kind of outfit it was, but yeah, you can tell that Kayla was freezing. You can tell that Kevin was freezing. They did a really good job of covering it, but if you look closely, you can tell that they are so cold because they did this in December. They recorded, they filmed in
I was
December.
going to say, because this was another Christmas in July
It was
movie.
a Christmas in July.
So
Yes.
typically, all the Christmas movies are filmed in the hot, hot summer, and they're trying to be bundled up like you and I are filming this in July in our Christmas sweaters.
I've got the fan going like crazy.
Me too. So typically, most Christmas movies are filmed in the summer. They're bundled up and they're just so hot in filming. But the Christmas in July movies are typically filmed in the winter because they have to get ready for July. And that
And they
is
have all of the Christmas
hilarious.
decorations up anyway. So they
Right.
want to
They
do
might
it at
as well.
Christmas. Yeah.
So that's just a funny like side note to that is that yes, in that particular outfit, she had to have been freezing.
But we don't care because
Because it's beautiful.
because it's beautiful and they really show what Christmas can be because she didn't even want to be celebrating Christmas. Her boss says no decorations at your desk, but you've become the voice of Christmas. At the beginning of the movie, she says that. And it shows her progression. It shows her starting at not liking Christmas, wanting to ignore Christmas. I'm just coming home from my grandfather
Yeah.
to I am going to spend my life with someone who has taught me to love Christmas and to feel Christmas again. And we are going to be together and we are going to celebrate Christmas for the rest of our lives together. What better way to do it?
Mm-hmm.
So,
And this, like in one similarity to Operation Christmas, this also is another movie where it's never even a thought that he will not be in the military or that his
yes,
service will end at some time. They don't ever say like, oh well, in a few years we won't have to deal with this or anything
yep,
like that. He is a career military
he is.
individual. He's gonna be doing this till he retires.
Yep. But they stick it out. They stick it out and they pull through and they come out on the other side. And that is a Christmas movie that I will watch over and over and over. And I'm, I don't know, I'd probably watch it in March if I had the chance.
Yeah. And like you said, this is a standout performance for Kayla as well
Mm,
because she doesn't have as many leading roles as Kevin and it just really showcases her abilities.
yeah.
And you know, when I was watching it, when I was rewatching it this time, I immediately was just like this makes so much sense that she's, you know, now moving on to some bigger and better parts
Mm-hmm.
because she has really shown that she is capable of so much more of the dramatic, you know, not just leading roles in rom-coms, but that she can really carry a big heavy performance.
Yeah. Well, Hearties, those are our picks. Why don't you tell us what your picks are in the comments? And we wish all of you a Merry Christmas in July. Bye, everybody.
Bye.